All right, let's come back to the script here. I put up a couple of paintings in the break that I thought you'd be interested in. Again, illustrating, if we didn't need that, the significance of Shakespeare culturally. His dramas are obviously fit subject for painting because they dramatize in a static way what we see being enacted on the stage. Here we see the Cordelia being led away by the King of France, who's looking up to the heavens at this point, and all the various figures. But of chief interest probably is the three sisters. Lear in a state of vexation, angrily looking downwards, but then the two sisters, Goneril and Regan, I'm not sure which is which, looking at each other rather angrily or in a hostile fashion, and Cordelia remote from the two of them. We'll see other portraits of this as well. The two sisters looking at her rather triumphantly or indignantly, and she being carted away, casting her glance backwards, having her hand kissed by the King of France, although she is without any of the trappings of the daughter of being a king, being divested of such by her father. This is even more hostile. The two sisters looking at her rather bitterly, and she looking a picture of mildness and not returning their hostility in kind, and with this point of finger pointing upwards, probably pointing to heaven. Be easy to overlook that, but it's a significant part of the picture. I'll come back to some of the others. I'm going to look at pictures of Lear on the heath later on. But what we see in this is, and Shakespeare has emphasized from the outset, and is represented by the fool, who is very much like Cordelia. And we'll find later on, when we hear the evidence of the death of the fool, it's unclear whether the reference is not to Cordelia. The fool and Cordelia are very much allied characters. We see that the fool is sympathetic towards Cordelia, but also in some sense represents her in various forms. And Cordelia, if we want to think of the play as a whole, Cordelia embodies truth and her father embodies power. And the two should be together, united, truth and power. If Lear is ruling lawfully and wisely, he will act truly, and his power will be effective. But he divorces his reign of truth in favor of pretense. Let's have a little act, a little drama here, and you tell me which one of you loves me the most. And depending on your professions, I'll divide and give you more of the kingdom for yourself. Well, it's an act. He wants his daughters to be hypocrites. His youngest daughter cannot be a hypocrite. She is actually a faithful daughter, and so she won't go through with the charade. She's a little bit too allied to truthfulness to do this. And Lear banishes truthfulness from his presence. And all that is left is power. And to some degree, although this is not a Christian play, in the sense that there aren't references to it by the characters. In fact, they repeatedly refer to nature and chance and fortune and fate. Although these aren't the same sorts of things, these are things that are not references to God's reign in these matters, which we would refer to as providence and vocation and so forth, but certainly nothing to do with providence. And yet, in some ways, it is a Christian play insofar as Cordelia represents truth and teaches us something about the nature of truth and its necessity, even from a pagan conception. But we'll come to that when we come to that. I said last time we would come and look at the fool's speech here, because I mean, I'm going rather slowly at the outset, but he really is setting the stage and introducing all of the important characters, and the fool is a very important character who's not yet been introduced. So we left off, he gives Kent money for his faithfulness, his loyalty to him in attacking the steward Oswald, who was faithful to his lady and her wishes, but was rude to the king, who's not a king, who acts as if he's a king, even though he's divested himself of kingship. And that's exactly what the fool points out. So he gives Kent money, and the fool enters and says, "Let me hire him too. Here's my coxcomb." Now the coxcomb is the fool's cap. We got a picture of that here. This. Here's my coxcomb. "How now, my pretty knave, how dost thou?" "Sirrah, you were best take my coxcomb." "Why, fool?" "Why? For taking one's part, that's out of favor. Nay, and thou canst not smile as the wind sits. Thou'lt catch cold shortly. There, take my coxcomb." "Why, this fellow," pointing to Lear, "has banished 2 on's daughters, and did the 3rd a blessing against his will. If thou follow him, thou must needs wear my coxcomb. How now, nuncle, would I had 2 coxcombs and 2 daughters." So he inverts things. The one that's been blessed is the one that's been cursed. The one that has been cursed has actually been blessed, because everything's inverted. Fair is foul and foul is fair, exactly just like Macbeth. "Would I had 2 coxcombs and 2 daughters." "Why, my boy?" Now he's able to say that. Note that Lear is not indignant immediately at the slight given to him. He expects the fool to speak to him in this fashion. "Why, my boy? If I gave them all my living, I'd keep my coxcombs myself. There's mine. Beg another of thy daughters." "Take heed, sirrah, the whip." "Truth's a dog must to kennel. He must be whipped out when the Lady Brack may stand by the fire and stink." Lady Brack here, probably a reference to falsehood, flattering falsehood, like a bitch dog, female dog here. Probably the reference, rather rude. "A pestilent gall to me." That is falsehood. Falsehood is a pestilent gall to me. "Sirrah, I'll teach thee a speech." "Do." "Mark it, nuncle. Have more than thou showest, speak less than thou knowest, lend less than thou owest, ride more than thou goest, learn more than thou trowest, set less than thou throwest, leave thy drink and thy whore, and keep it in a door, and thou shalt have more than 2 tens to a score." This is nothing, fool. "Then 'tis like the breath of an unfeed lawyer. You gave me nothing for it. Can you make no use of nothing, nuncle?" "Why, no, boy, nothing can be made out of nothing." And then to Kent, back to where the speech began, "Then tell him, prithee tell him, so much the rent of his land comes to. He will not believe a fool. A bitter fool. Dost thou know the difference, my boy, between a bitter fool and a sweet one?" "No, lad, teach me." So you can see just from the way the speeches are playing out that there's a lightness about them. Lear is transformed. He's able to interact with a man who's even insulting him because they have this jesting relationship. And he immediately falls into that. Yeah, comment? Not sure.
It's not uncle, but...
No, nuncle rather than uncle. No, I don't think so. And they invert it as well, and boy and nothing, and then he calls him boy and nuncle, and they keep going back and forth. But anyway, the difference between a bitter fool and a sweet... "No, lad, teach me. That lord that counseled thee to give away thy land, come place him here by me. Do thou for him stand. The sweet and bitter fool will presently appear. The one in motley here, the other found out there. Dost thou call me fool, boy? All thy other titles thou hast given away, that thou wast born with. And then Kent, this is not altogether fool, my lord. No, faith, lords and great men will not let me. If I had a monopoly out, they would have part in it. And ladies too, they will not let me have all the fool to myself. They'll be snatching. Nuncle, give me an egg, and I'll give thee 2 crowns. What 2 crowns shall they be? Why, after I have cut the egg in the middle and eat up the meat, the 2 crowns of the egg. When thou clovest thy crown in the middle and gavest away both parts, thou borest thine ass on thy back o'er the dirt. Thou hadst little wit in thy bald crown when thou gavest thy golden one away. If I speak like myself in this, let him be whipped that first finds it so. And then sings. I have no idea how he sings this, but fools had ne'er less grace in a year, for wise men are grown foppish, and know not how their wits to wear, their manners are so apish. When were you wont to be so full of songs, sirrah? I have used it, nuncle, ere since thou madest thy daughters thy mothers. For when thou gavest them the rod, and putst down thine own breeches, when they for sudden joy did weep, and I for sorrow sung, that such a king should play bo peep, and go the fools among. Prithee, nuncle, keep a schoolmaster that can teach thy fool to lie. I would fain learn to lie. And you lie, sirrah, we'll have you whipped. I marvel what kin thou and thy daughters are. They'll have me whipped for speaking true, thou'll have me whipped for lying, and sometimes I am whipped for holding my peace. I'd rather be any kind of thing than a fool, and yet I would not be thee, nuncle, for thou hast pared thy wit on both sides and left nothing in the middle. Here comes one of the pairings. And Goneril walks in at this point. So all of this is pointing out to Lear, quite obviously, the folly of his actions in dividing things up and leaving himself split in 2, and with nothing in the middle. There's nothing left of him. At this point, there's nothing that the fool can do to make him correct his actions, because he's passed a royal edict and he's done. He can't recover his kingship. He's passed it on by decree. He's a shell of a man. He's a hollow man. There's nothing there. And there's nothing then for the fool to do other than to tease him and acquaint him with this. Now, he's not going to bring him back into the position of being king. What he can get him to do is to recognize the folly of his actions and perhaps to repent of it and reconcile himself perhaps to his daughter, Cordelia, who he's banished. That's the best he can do. But he does it through the means of foolish speech, which is actually wisdom. And then Goneril comes in and will speak to the abuse of her servant, Oswald. How now, daughter, what makes that frontlet on? You are too much elate in the frown. And then the fool, thou wast a pretty fellow when thou hadst no need to care for her frowning. Now thou art an O without a figure. I am better than thou art now. I am a fool. Thou art nothing. To Goneril, yes, forsooth, I will hold my tongue. So your face bids me, though you say nothing. Mum, mum, he that keeps nor crust nor crumb, weary of all, shall want some. Pointing to Lear, that's a shield peace god. Not only, sir, and Goneril now stern, irritated, say this is at the fool who keeps saying truthful things and irritates her. She doesn't find him funny at all. Speaking in language that reflects her station. Note how it's now in iambic pentameter, roughly speaking. She is possessed of herself, has the authority about her. Not only, sir, that this your all-licensed fool, but other of your insolent retinue do hourly carp and quarrel, breaking forth in rank, and not to be endured riots. Sir, I had thought by making this well known unto you to have found a safe redress, but now grow fearful by what yourself too late have spoke and done, that you protect this course and put it on by your allowance, which, if you should, the fault would not scape censure, nor the redresses sleep, which in the tender of a wholesome weal might in their working do you that offense which else were shame, that then necessity will call discreet proceedings. In other words, I'm going to have to treat you badly, and you're bringing it on yourself. Fool immediately comments, for you know, nuncle, the hedge sparrow fed the cuckoo so long that it had its head bit off by it young. So went out the candle, and we were left darkling. Now, the analogy here, or the reference here, is to the cuckoo bird, which lays its eggs in other birds' nests. And when they hatch, being large birds, they're aggressive. At least that's the Elizabethan's understanding of it, and bite off its head, just like Lear, his offspring. So there's an illegitimacy, even the apparent legitimacy here. And again, the play on nature and legitimacy here. Here's going to be something unnatural is about to happen. The king's head is going to be bit off by his young. Even though they are his legitimate offspring, they're going to act as if there was no law of nature that applied in their situation anymore, because they have power. This is a kingdom now of power without truth or wisdom or moral actions. That's what Lear has unleashed. And he expects them to act according to the law of nature, which he himself has abolished. And the fool keeps acquainting him with this fact, and he cannot understand the consequences of his own actions, but he does understand what she's just said. Are you our daughter? I would you would make use of your good wisdom, whereof I know you are fraught, and put away these dispositions which of late transport you from what you rightly are. And then the fool, may not an ass know when the cart draws the horse? Whoop, jug, I love thee. He's defending the king. Even the ass can ask the question here. Again, insulting the king, but defending him. Doth any here know me? This is not Lear. Does Lear walk thus, speak thus? Where are his eyes? Either his notion weakens, his discernings are lethargies. Ha! Waking, 'tis not so. Who is it that can tell me who I am? Lear's shadow. I would learn that. For by the marks of sovereignty, knowledge, and reason, I should be false persuaded I had daughters, which they will make an obedient father. So they've inverted the order of things. Again, even though it's set in a pagan setting, he's referring to the duties of children to their parents of obedience. And they're inverting it now that you've made them your head, they're going to make you an obedient father. And he's incensed at something that he himself has orchestrated. Your name, fair gentlewoman. This admiration, sir, is much of the savor of other your new pranks. I do beseech you to understand my purposes aright. As you are old and reverend, should be wise. Here do you keep 100 knights and squires, men so disordered, so debauched and bold, that this our court, infected with their manners, shows like a riotous inn. Epicurism and lust make it more like a tavern or a brothel than a graced palace. The shame itself doth speak for instant remedy. Be then desired by her, that else will take the thing she begs, a little to disquantity your train, and the reminders that shall still depend to be such men as may besort your age, which know themselves and you. In other words, why don't you willingly reduce your retinue, or I will do it myself by force. She's giving him a choice, and the choice is do it right now. Darkness and devils, saddle my horses, call my train together. Degenerate bastard, I'll not trouble thee, yet have I left a daughter. You strike my people, and your disordered rabble make servants of their betters. Now Albany, her husband, comes in. And the husband is a very weak man, ruled by his wife. He's upset at what is about to ensue. He sees a terrible breach, the king being dishonored and sent out of, about to leave in a huff, and wishes to intercede here, but he's not going to be very successful. Enter Albany. Lear. Woe that too late repents. O sir, are you come? Is it your will? Speak, sir. Prepare my horses. Ingratitude, thou marble-hearted fiend, more hideous when thou show'st thee in a child than the sea monster. Pray, sir, be patient. And Lear to Goneril. Detested kite, thou liest. My train are men of choice and rarest parts, that all particulars of duty know, and in the most exact regard support the worships of their name. Now the first hint of remorse, not repentance, but remorse at what brought this about. O most small fault, how ugly didst thou in Cordelia show, which like an engine wrenched my frame of nature from the fixed place, drew from my heart all love, and added to the gall. O Lear, 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 beat at this gate that let thy folly in, and thy dear judgment out. Go, go, my people. Insight for the first time. Knights in Kent leave. Albany left. My lord, I am guiltless as I am ignorant of what hath moved you. It may be so, my lord. Here nature, now again, now he addresses himself to nature. Capital N nature, it's capitalized throughout here. Although it's not here in this text, but in mine. Here, dear goddess, here, suspend thy purpose, if thou didst intend to make this creature fruitful. So he wishes his daughter to be barren. He's not coming back from this. This is the sort of speech that's, again, will not be unheard. To make this creature fruitful, into her womb convey sterility, dry up in her the organs of increase, and from her derogate body never spring a babe to honor her. If she must teem, create her child of spleen, that it may live and be a thwart disnatured torment to her. Let it stamp wrinkles in her brow of youth, with cadent tears fret channels in her cheeks, turn all her mother's pains and benefits to laughter and contempt, that she may feel how sharper than a serpent's tooth it is to have a thankless child. Away, away. Curses her, that either she be sterile and have no children, or if she has a child, that the child be so contemptuous that she gets what she gives out. So measure for measure. Now, and Albany, who's her husband, not very pleased at this. Now, gods that we adore, whereof comes this? Never afflict yourself to know more of it, but let his disposition have that scope as dotage gives it. Goneril puts him in. He asks Goneril how on earth did he get to be in such a state of rage, and she says, don't you worry about it. Get you back in your place. Never afflict yourself to know more of it, but let his disposition have that scope as dotage gives it. Just does not care to have the situation remedied, does not want her husband to understand, just accept it. This is the way he is. He's a dotard. He's lost his wits. He's a senile old man. Enter Lear. What? 50 of my followers at a clap within a fortnight? What's the matter, sir? I'll tell thee. Now speaking to Goneril, life and death, I am ashamed. I am ashamed of that thou hast power to shake my manhood thus, that these hot tears which break from me perforce should make thee worth them. Blasts and fogs upon thee, the untented woundings of a father's curse pierce every sense about thee. Old fond eyes, beweep this cause again. I'll pluck ye out and cast you with the waters that you loose to temper clay. Yea, is it come to this? Let it be so. I have another daughter, who I am sure is kind and comfortable. When she shall hear this of thee, with her nails she'll flee thy wolfish visage. Thou shalt find that I'll resume the shape which thou dost think I have cast off forever. And then out he goes. Do you mark that? He's threatening revenge. He's going to come back as king with his daughter supporting him, and he's going to take back what he's given away. Do you mark that? And now Albany, who is a good-hearted, but as I say, weak fellow, I cannot be so partial, Goneril, to the great love I bear you. Pray you content. What, Oswald? Ho! And then to the fool. You, sir, more knave than fool, after your master. Nuncle Lear, tarry and take the fool with thee, a fox when one has caught her, and such a daughter would sure to the slaughter, if my cap would buy a halter. So the fool follows after, and then out he goes. Goneril, this man hath had good counsel. 100 knights, 'tis politic and safe to let him keep. At point 100 knights, yes, that on every dream, each buzz, each fancy, each complaint, dislike, he may guard his dotage with their powers, and hold our lives in mercy. Oswald, I say. Well, you may fear too far. Safer than trust too far, let me still take away the harms I fear, not fear still to be taken. I know his heart. What he hath uttered, I have writ my sister. If she sustain him and his 100 knights, when I have showed the unfitness. How now, Oswald? So she's written him, and she's written her sister, Regan, expecting her to share her treatment of her father. And if she doesn't, there's going to be consequences. They're going to have a fight. Because Lear is a threat to them. They have to united stand against him and dispossess him of everything. So you better not treat him well and foment an insurrection in the midst of the kingdom, or there's going to a civil war will truly ensue here. So anyway, so now we have full blown. We have all of the introductory actions that are going to set in motion downward spiral of the play. As I say at the outset, in a sense, everything that could go wrong has gone wrong. The kingdom's already divided up. The family of Lear has already been broken up, and everyone good has been banished out. The truth is gone. Power is left. It's not going to work out very well. What is left, however, is that Lear the man, having stripped himself of power and of kingship, is going to be stripped of his sanity and his clothing and his retinue and everything else. He's going to go back to the state of nature. The state of nature. Now, in the Romantics rendering, the state of nature is often a blessed one. It's one you want to return to because nature is always good. And human society is seen in its early origins as something that is fundamentally good, and it gets corrupted over time by society, by legislation, by custom. And the solution to the problems of social ills is to return back to nature and emulate those that are closest to nature, the peasant, the child, etc. We can see that King Lear, Shakespeare's Lear, will have nothing of this. The state of nature is rather savage and brutish and is entirely inhospitable to mankind. We need art to direct us in how to relate to nature. We need customs, we need laws, we need justice. You can't just appeal to the nature. That's exactly what Edmund has done. He said that his nature is just as legitimate as Edgar's, and the only difference between them is that they have different mothers, yes, but one is arbitrarily been determined to be legitimate and the other illegitimate, and therefore he's a bastard. Well, the distinction between legitimacy and bastardy is effectively nothing. And so a man will seize power for the sake of power and disregard all moral restraint. So those are the actions that have ensued here now. Any comments or questions about this at this stage, by the way? It's a long, slow developing plot in the sense that we're not even out to Act 1. Now, I've taken my time with it, but a great deal has transpired in the first act, and not just a plot and a subplot, but then the fool gets pulled in as a third element, which is a foil for Cordelia to demonstrate all of this, and even we have multiple dramaturge figures. We've got Edmund, the anti-dramaturge. We have Kent, who's come back in and tried to orchestrate things so that they work out well, and a very complex plot. And in scene 5, Kent, Lear, and the fool are together on this, and there's various exchanges between Lear and the fool, which further amplify the themes already here, and I think they're rather useful, and connect the plot to the subplot. Go you to Gloucester. Go you before to Gloucester with these letters. Acquaint my daughter no further with anything you know than comes from her demand out of the letter. If your diligence be not speedy, I shall be there afore you. I will not sleep, my lord, till I have delivered your letter. Exit. And now the fool and the Lear left alone on the stage. And so you may say, well, what is this? It's a digression from the plot. And it is. The plot is not furthered by the fool and Lear's exchanges. But what is furthered is the theme of wisdom and folly. The plot, the action not. But the idea of the folly of Lear's actions and the consequences are dug down into in the exchange between these two characters. So the fool, it says, if a man's brains were in his heels, were it not in danger of kibes? Aye, boy. Then I prithee be merry, thy wit shall not go slipshod. Ha ha ha. Shalt see thy other daughter will use thee kindly, for though she's as like this as a crab's like an apple, yet I can tell what I can tell. What canst tell, boy? She'll taste as like this as a crab does to a crab. Thou canst tell why one's nose stands in the middle on its face? No. Why, to keep one's eyes on either side one's nose. That what a man cannot smell out, he may spy into. I did her wrong. Now back again to Cordelia, and his thoughts will repeatedly return back to Cordelia. The heat of his passion has cooled, and now remorse has set in, but he has no means of remedying what he's done. And all that's left then is just remorse. I did her wrong. Canst tell how an oyster makes his shell? No, nor I either, but I can tell why a snail has a house. Why? Why, to put's head in it, not to give it away to his daughters and leave his horns without a case. I will forget my nature. So kind a father, be my horses ready. Thy asses are gone about them. The reason why the 7 stars are no more than 7 is a pretty reason. Because they're not 8? Yes, indeed, thou would make the good fool. To take it again perforce. Monster ingratitude. So he discloses his thoughts here. He wants to, by martial means, to recover the kingdom. He's going to openly commit an act of war to try and take back what he's lost. If thou wert my fool, nuncle, I'd have thee beaten for being old before thy time. How is that? That thou shouldst not have been old till thou hadst been wise. Oh, let me not be mad, not mad, sweet heaven. Keep me in temper. I would not be mad. So there's the will to take the kingdom back, which he articulates, but the problem is that he has no means to do it, and madness is the only outcome that can ensue in the play. Anyway, back to the subplot. Act 2. And the bastard Edmund and Curran come from different sides of the stage. Edmund, save thee, Curran. And you, sir, I've been with your father and given him notice that the Duke of Cornwall and Regan, his Duchess, will be here with him this night. How comes that? Nay, I know not. You have heard of the news abroad, I mean the whispered ones, for they are yet but ear-bussing arguments. Not I. Pray you, what are they? Have you heard of no likely wars twixt the Dukes of Cornwall and Albany? Not a word. You may do then in time. Fare you well, sir. So already the consequences of the division of the kingdom are going to be that a war will ensue between them. It's only a matter of time. And the rumors are that it's about to happen. We've already heard omens of this as well. But Edmund, the Duke be here tonight, the better. Best. This weaves itself perforce into my business. My father hath set guard to take my brother, and I have one thing of a queasy question, which I must act. Briefness and fortune, work. Brother, a word. Descend, brother, I say. Enter Edgar. My father watches. Oh, sir, fly this place. Intelligence is given where you are hid. You have now the good advantage of the night. Have you not spoken against the Duke of Cornwall? He's coming hither, now in the night, in the haste, and Regan with him. Have you nothing said upon his party against the Duke of Albany? Advise yourself. I'm sure on it, not a word. I hear my father come. Have you not spoken against the... No, I haven't spoken against any of these. So Edgar seems like a fool, or he's a naive brother, very easily manipulated, trusting his brother Edmund because his nature is so good that he can't even suspect that somebody might mean harm or to deceive. In that sense, Edgar is a foil for Cordelia. But is Cordelia as foolish as Edgar? I don't think so. There's wisdom in Cordelia that we don't find in Edgar. Edgar is credulous and easily deceived. We never see Cordelia deceived. She's very shrewd in assessing the situation before her. She's just simply faithful and truthful. That's not the case here. We have a very simple man. A good man, but a simple man, easily duped. But out he goes, following his brothers, leading here. And as he exits, then Edmund says, some blood drawn on me would beget opinion, so he cuts himself. Of my more fierce endeavor. I have seen drunkards do more than this in sports. It's not a terrible cut. But then he cries out, Father, Father, stop, stop, no help. Enter Gloucester and servants with torches. Now, Edmund, where's the villain? Here stood he in the dark, his sharp sword out, mumbling of wicked charms, conjuring the moon to Stan's auspicious mistress. But where is he? So he goes back to the signs and the planets and so forth. Gloucester actually doesn't care about that particularly either. Enough of that. Now, Edmund, where is he? But where is he? Look, sir, I bleed. Where's the villain, Edmund? Fled this way, sir, when by no means he could. Pursue him. Ho! Go after. By no means what? Persuade me to the murder of your lordship. But that I told him the revenging gods against parricides did all the thunder bend, spoke with how manifold and strong a bond the child was bound to the father. Sir, in fine, seeing how loathly opposite I stood to his unnatural purpose, in fell motion with his prepared sword, he charges home my unprovided body, latched mine arm, and when he saw my best alarumed spirits, bold in the quarrel's right, roused to the encounter, or whether gasted by the noise I made, full suddenly he fled. Now he appeals to nature, not believing it, but recognizing that most people, including Gloucester, recognize that there is a natural hierarchy which deserves obedience, and he acts in accordance with that part. But it is just literally an act. He acts dutifully when he means to act foully. Gloucester, let him fly far. Not in this land shall he remain uncaught. And found, dispatch. The noble Duke, my master, my worthy arch and patron, comes tonight. By his authority I will proclaim it, that he which finds him shall deserve our thanks, bringing the murderous coward to the stake. He that conceals him, death. So Gloucester is a Leicester noble, and the Duke of Albany, when he comes, will authorize the killing of his son. Edmund, when I dissuaded him from his intent and found him pight to do it, with cursed speech I threatened to discover him. He replied, thou unpossessing bastard, dost thou think if I would stand against thee, would the reposal of any trust, virtue, or worth in thee make thy words faithed? No. So if we stand up in public and it's my word against yours, is anybody going to believe you? I'm legitimate, you're a bastard. No. What I should deny, as this I would, though thou didst produce my very character, I'd turn it all to thy suggestion, plot, and damned practice. And thou must make a dullard of the world, if they not thought the prophets of my death were very pregnant and potential spirits to make thee seek it. O strange and fastened villain! Would he deny his letter? Said he, I never got him. Tuck it within. Hark! The Duke's trumpets, I know not why he comes. All ports I'll bar, the villain shall not escape. The Duke must grant me that. Besides, his picture I will send far and near, and all the kingdom may have due note of him and of my land, lovable and natural boy, I'll work the means to make thee capable. Loyal, rather, sorry. So now the reversal has completed itself. The bastard is a loyal and natural boy. He has legitimacy about him through his actions. And yet the problem here, which Shakespeare's audience recognizes, is that there are great threats to mankind, including, but chiefly residing in sin. That actions can be judged, but actions can be feigned. And you can't just know everything by what you see with your own eyes. People can dissemble, and they can misrepresent, and that's exactly what's happened here. And in the pretensions to loyal and natural actions, he's actually inverted the order of things and is affecting in the household of the Duke of Gloucester the very same thing that Lear has done to his own household. So it comes from below rather than from above, but the effect is the same. So we have a mirroring of the plot and the subplot. One comes from the top down, one comes from the bottom up, but the same outcome. And then Cornwall, Regan, and attendants come in, and so forth. Cornwall is the corresponding figure to Albany. I would say that he is a little bit more capable, less weak than Albany. But nonetheless, in both cases, the sisters are of a certain sort that both of them end up seeking to have an affair with Edmund. And so what began as a difficult thing to assess, namely their character, becomes more and more over the course of time such that we will look upon them as rather bad and wicked characters. That wickedness is concealed from us at the beginning, because in a sense they're professing, they're going through the act, going through the motions. So they're misrepresenting their true feelings, but we don't know that they hate their father and that they have no restraint on their actions whatsoever. And whether this would even be a realistic portrait, it doesn't matter. To some degree, Shakespeare's always trying to illustrate in his drama truths about human nature. And these are almost allegories, allegorical representations of daughters that are void of virtue. And remember, Lear has cast virtue out of his kingdom and truth in the person of his daughter. So back to this. But as I say, this is really quite nicely done, the finger pointing upwards. I'm going to be faithful and truthful. And they looking downwards and resentful with the crowns on their heads. She has nothing but the dutiful Alice band. Anyway, Cornwall, Regan, and attendants. How now, my noble friend, since I came hither, which I can call but now, I have heard strange news. If it be true, all vengeance comes too short, which can pursue the offender. How dost, my lord? Gloucester. Oh, madam, my old heart is cracked. It's cracked. What? Did my father's godson seek your life? He whom my father named? Your Edgar? Oh, lady, lady, shame would have it hid. Was he not companion with the riotous knights that tended upon my father? I know not, madam. 'Tis too bad, too bad. Yes, madam, he was of that consort. So, in case you're minded to show him a little bit of leniency here or leeway, he was with those riotous knights that are actually rebellious against you as well. Let's make sure that you're against him as much as my father is going to want you to be. Yes, madam, he was of that consort. Well, no marvel then, though he were ill affected. 'Tis they have put him on the old man's death, to have the expense and waste of his revenues. I have this present evening from my sister been well informed of them, and with such cautions that if they come to sojourn at my house, I'll not be there Nor I assure thee, Regan, Edmund, I hear that you have shown your father a childlike office. It was my duty, sir. He did bewray his practice and received this hurt. You see? Striving to apprehend him. Is he pursued? Aye, my good lord. If he be taken, he shall never more be feared of doing harm. Make your own purpose, how in my strength you please. For you, Edmund, whose virtue and obedience doth this instant so much commend itself, you shall be ours. So he adopts him as if he were our own. You're legitimate. So the greater nobleman of Cornwall, he's rising up the ranks, just like we saw Macbeth do. Same thing is happening here. He was legitimate in Gloucester's eyes. Now he's legitimate in Cornwall's eyes, and he's not going to be satisfied with that. So he's, in a sense, although we're not comparing the plays, and certainly Shakespeare's not, he is a very similar figure to a Macbeth. Through his ambition, through his sense of his own natural aptitudes and abilities, he is going to seek to rise. And ignoring all custom and all rank and all authority, achieve his desires. And Edmund, of course, in response to this, I shall serve you, sir, which he is never going to do. He serves himself only. Truly, however else. For him I thank your grace. You know not why we came to visit you. Thus, out of season, Regan completing his question, threading dark-eyed night, occasions Gloucester, occasions noble Gloucester of some poise, wherein we must have use of your advice. Our father, he hath writ, so hath our sister, of differences, which I best thought it fit to answer from our home. The several messengers from hence attend dispatch. Our good old friend lay comforts to your bosom, and bestow your needful counsel to our businesses, which craves the instant use. I serve you, madam. Your graces are right welcome. So they come to Gloucester as a counselor. Now, so there is some mutual affection there. What is going to become of the relationship between Gloucester and Cornwall? It's going to be equally as poisoned. So there's a degeneration of all relations that was spoken of earlier. We're going to see actually played out in the course of the play. I'll skip over the scene 2 where we have Oswald, the steward, and Kent disguised as Keys, and Kent abuses him and trips him, and Oswald calls for help, and then come in Cornwall and Gloucester to see a scene of chaos and disarray. Calls out for murder, and then the characters that we just left in the previous scene enter the stage and see conflict. And how are they going to deal with this? With you, good man, boy, if you please. Come, I'll flesh thee. Come on, young master. Weapons, arms, what's the matter here? Keep peace upon your lives. He dies that strikes again. What is the matter? Where is this? I don't have the lines here. The messengers from our king, our sister and the king. What is your difference? Speak. I am scarce in breath, my lord. No marvel. You have bestirred your valor, you cowardly rascal. Nature disclaims in thee. A tailor made thee. You're not a real man. You were stitched up, constructed to do ill. Thou art a strange fellow, says Cornwall. A tailor make a man? A tailor, sir, a stone cutter or a painter could not have made him so ill, though they had been but 2 years of the trade. Speak yet, how grew your quarrel? This ancient ruffian, sir, whose life I have spared at suit of his grey beard. Thou horse son Zed, thou unnecessary letter, my lord, if you'll give me leave, I will tread this unbolted villain into mortar, and daub the wall of Jake's with him. Spare my grey beard, you wagtail. Peace, sirrah, you beastly knave. Know you no reverence? Yes, sir, but anger hath a privilege, righteous anger. Hath a privilege. Why art thou angry? That such a slave as this should wear a sword, who wears no honesty. Such smiling rogues are these, like rats, oft bite the holy cords a twain, which are the intrinsic to unloose. Smooth every passion that in the natures of their lords rebel, being oil to fire, snow to the colder moods, renege, affirm, and turn their halcyon beaks with every gale and vary of their masters, knowing not, like dogs, but following. A plague on your epileptic visage. Smile you my speeches, as I were a fool? Goose, and I had you upon Sarum plain, I'll drive ye cackling home to Camelot. What? Art thou mad, old fellow? How fell you out, Gloucester? Say that. No contraries hold more antipathy than I and such a knave. Why dost thou call him knave? What is his fault? His countenance likes me not. He can't justify it. It's just hostility. He's been told to do it by Lear, but he actually has no understanding of what he's doing. He's just doing the mad king's bidding. And all he can say is, I don't like his face. No more, perchance, does mine, nor his, nor hers. Sir, 'tis my occupation to be plain. I have seen better faces in my time than stands on any shoulder that I see before me at this instant. Well, Kent is very honest, but he's not very good. There's not much honey in his words. There's a lot of vinegar. And he's standing in the presence of somebody who's able to do whatever he wants with him. And this is a mad, raging old man, and he's going to take care of him. And he's not wrong in doing so either, actually. Cornwall, this is some fellow who, having been praised for bluntness, doth affect a saucy roughness, and constrains the garb quite from his nature. He cannot flatter, he, an honest mind and plain, he must speak truth, and they will take it. So, if not, he's plain. These kinds of knaves I know, which in this plainness harbor more craft and more corrupter ends than 20 silly ducking observants that stretch their duties nicely. So Kent claims to be truth shorn of any pretenses. I'm just an honest man. And Cornwall's response is, I know that this is just a feigned honesty. You're actually dissembling, and you have more malice in your intentions here. Kent, sir, in good faith, in sincere verity, under the allowance of your great aspect, whose influence like the wreath of radiant fire on flickering Phoebus' front. What meanst by this? Cornwall's not very bright. What meanst by this? To go out of my dialect, which you discommend so much, I know, sir, I am no flatterer. He that beguiled you in a plain accent was a plain knave, which for my part I will not be, though I should win your displeasure to entreat me to it. So once again, coming back to the question, what was the offense you gave him? To Oswald, I never gave him any. It pleased the king, his master, very late to strike at me his misconstruction when he, compact and flattering his displeasure, tripped me behind, being down, insulted, railed, and put upon him such a deal of man that worthied him, got praises of the king for him attempting who was self-subdued, and in the fleshment of this dread exploit, drew on me here again. Kent, none of these rogues and cowards, but Ajax is their fool. Cornwall's had quite enough. Quite enough of this. Fetch forth the stocks. Stocks are means of torture. Do you know what the stocks are? Just in case you don't. Yeah, the stock market. There you go. These are the stocks. Put him in the stocks. So his feet are bound. He can't leave. It's like a equivalent of handcuffs, but they're on the feet. And while he's there, of course, he can't feed or drink. And others passing by can hit him, throw things at him, whatever. And it's a public treatment so that people will abuse him, see that he's a bad individual, and they'll do whatever they want with him. So fetch me, fetch forth the stocks, you stubborn ancient knave, you reverent braggart. We'll teach you. Sir, I am too old to learn. Call not your stocks for me. I serve the king, on whose employment I was sent to you. You shall do small respects. Show too bold malice against the grace and person of my master. Stalking his messenger, fetch forth the stocks. As I have life and honor, there shall he sit till noon. Till noon, till night, my lord, and all night too. Why, madam, if I were your father's dog, you should not use me so. Sir, being his knave, I will. This is a fellow of the self-same color our sister speaks of. Come, bring away the stocks. And the stocks are brought out. Now Gloucester intercedes and tries to ameliorate the situation. And we're going to find that all of the, and this is interesting, all of the forces in the play that try and prevent the breaking out of violence and conflict are totally ineffective. They're ignored, and actually they end up being abused. Everything is breaking out, and there's nothing that can stop it, including the councillor Gloucester. Remember, they just came to Gloucester for counsel. Gloucester counsels, let me beseech your grace not to do so. His fault is much, and the good king, his master, will check him for it. Your purposed low correction is such as basest and contempts wretches, for pilferings and most common trespasses are punished with. The king must take it ill that he, so slightly valued in his messenger, should have him thus restrained. I'll answer that. You're going to offend the king if you do this. Cornwall, I'll answer that. And Regan, my sister may receive it much more worse to have her gentleman abused, assaulted, for following her affairs. Put in his legs. Kent is put in the stocks. Come, my good lord, away. And they all go out. And Gloucester, I am sorry for thee, friend. 'Tis the duke's pleasure, whose disposition all the world well knows will not be rubbed nor stopped. I'll entreat for thee. Pray do not, sir. Pray do not. I have watched and traveled hard. Sometime I shall sleep out, the rest I'll whistle. A good man's fortune may grow out at heels. Give you good morrow. The duke's to blame in this. 'Twill be ill taken. Out he goes. Now Kent is left on the stage and speaks of this in terms of fortune. And let me talk about the wheel of fortune and how from a pagan worldview, events happen in apparently arbitrary and random ways, and yet there's an ordering to it. Now, the idea of fate and fatalism is that there can be no change, or and that things are basically destined by the fates. There's no deviation there allowed. In the medieval world, they introduced the idea of Lady Fortune, who has a wheel that she turns, and it somewhat works with the fates, and yet does so in a somewhat with a little bit of allowance for free will and for randomness and for chance. And Kent will appeal to that now. Remember, this is more of a pagan setting for the play. Kent, as I say in his soliloquy here, good king that must approve the common saw, thou out of heaven's benediction comest to the warm sun. Approach, thou beacon, to this underglobe, that by thy comfortable beams I may peruse this letter. Nothing almost sees miracles but misery. I know 'tis from Cordelia, who hath most fortunately been informed of my obscured course. And now he unfolds and reads. And shall find time from this enormous state, seeking to give losses their remedies. Puts it back away. All weary and o'erwatched, take vantage, heavy eyes, not to behold this shameful lodging. Fortune, good night, smile once more, turn thy wheel. Falls asleep. Okay, so Kent will accept this because he thinks there's a turning of fortune that Cordelia is about to orchestrate. There's a plot afoot which he acquaints the audience of now, that Cordelia will not stay abroad with France, but rather will seek to return and to prevent the harms which he suspects her sisters will unleash, and they are unleashing as we speak. So there's hope on the horizon, and there's again, it begins tragically, and there's hope that things might yet get better. Now we have poor Edgar, and Edgar, in response to everything here, is going to disguise himself. And again, we have a certain theme here. We just had the Kent, who is honest and forthright and unvarnished in his opinions, does not disguise them, he doesn't flatter, he doesn't, as a way of dealing with reality. In a truthful world, that probably works well, but truth has been banished from the kingdom. This is not going to work for him at all. He's going to be treated very roughly for speaking honestly in a kingdom where truth is not honored, in fact has been banished. So Edgar, who was a very naive figure, is going to have to act accordingly. Now that he's totally lost everything through his brother's actions, he's going to have to disguise himself, and he will disguise himself as a mad beggar and act more or less like an Odysseus. This is wisdom. When truth is banished, act in a way that will not be suspected. And Edgar, he's heard enough here. I heard myself proclaimed, and by the happy hollow of a tree escaped the hunt. No port is free. No place that guard in most unusual vigilance does not attend my taking. Whilst I may escape, I will preserve myself, and am bethought to take the basest and most poorest shape that ever penury and contempt of man brought near to beast. My face I'll grime with filth, blanket my loins, elf my hairs in knots, and with presented nakedness outface the winds and persecutions of the sky. The country gives me proof and precedent of bedlam beggars. Now, Bedlam is an area in London where they send people who are mentally ill. They don't have institutions or so forth. They are outside, and yet in an area where he will go as a bedlam beggars, who with roaring voices strike in their numbed and mortified arms pins, wooden pricks, nails, sprigs of rosemary, and with this horrible object from low farms poor pelting villages, sheepcotes, and mills, sometimes with lunatic bands, sometimes with prayers enforce their charity. Poor Turley God, poor Tom, there's something yet. Edgar, I nothing am. So Edgar, Lear has made himself nothing, and now we're going to find that Edgar is also going to make himself nothing to survive in this situation. Lear enters the scene and sees his fool, or rather Kent, in stocks, and of course there's going to be much mirth and merriment on the fool's part for this. I'll pick it up at the fool's speech rather than this. Lear cannot believe that this could happen. And the fool's speech: winter's not gone yet, if the wild geese fly that way. Fathers that wear rags do make their children blind, but fathers that bear bags shall see their children kind. Fortune, that errant whore, ne'er turns the key to the poor. But for all this, thou shalt have as many dolours for thy daughters as thou canst tell in a year. Oh, how this mother swells up toward my heart. Hysterica, passio, down thou climbing sorrow, thy elements below. Where is this daughter? So Lear, at the outset, although he was rational in his deportment, was mad. Now his passions are going to overthrow him, and he'll be raging on the stage. He gets angrier and angrier. He just keeps ramping up. At first, as I said, he had the appearance of rationality, even though his actions were crazy from the perspective of the king, his own kingdom, and from the perspective of his household. But now he gets more and more angry or mad. I mean, in North America we say mad as in angry. In Britain, mad only refers to lunacy. People get angry, they don't get mad. Here in North America we say people get mad, and we call people mad. It's the same word often. Anyway, we disambiguate them here. Anyway, where is this daughter? With the Earl, sir, here within. Follow me not. Stay here. And out. And anyway, she will call them in. Let me go a little bit down here. Where learned you this, fool, not in the stocks, fool. So Lear loses his cool, and he will. Let me come to his final speech here before he. The storm and the tempest sound. So this is Act 2, scene. Is it scene 2? No, scene 4. Line 264. Because Goneril and Regan both come in, and they're going to barter down the king, because he's going to say, she's even worse than you were. You know, you let me keep 100, or you let me keep 50 knights. She wants me to have even fewer, and he's going to be bargaining with them, which one of you. So it's the parallel scene to the beginning of the play. Which one of you loves me the most? The one that loves me the most is going to allow me to keep more knights, and they're now. He's got no bargaining chips. He's got no power. They're going to whittle him down to nothing. 260. Goneril. Hear me, my lord. What need you 5 and 20? 10 or 5? To follow in a house where twice so many have a command to tend you. And then Regan. What need 1? And then reason. And then Lear. Oh, reason not the need. Where is it? Oh my goodness. I've lost all this. Oh, reason not the need. Our basest beggars are in the poorest thing superfluous. Allow not nature more than nature needs. Man's life is as cheap as beasts. Okay, so now the themes of the play about nature, unclothed of custom and culture, is worse than a man can endure. It's as bad as a beast's. If I have to justify it, I don't need any of these things. But if we do consider nature so devoid of the accoutrements of culture and of virtue, then you will see human beings as an animal and nothing but that. So, O reason not the need, our basest beggars are in the poorest things superfluous. Allow not nature more than nature needs. Man's life is cheap as beasts. Our contemporaries, leaders are wanting to leave us with nothing and we'll be happy with it. It's following nature. In nature's course, it'll reduce our wealth and thereby save the planet, allegedly. It's the same logic, roughly speaking. Lear speaking to Regan. Thou art a lady, if only to go warm were gorgeous. Why nature needs not that thou gorgeous wearest, which scarcely keeps thee warm. But for true need, you heavens give me that patience I need. You see me here, you gods, a poor old man. Now see, at this point he speaks to his daughter, but he's also exclaiming to the heavens. He's appealing above everything here. He's not an appeal to God, but he appeals upwards. A poor old man, as full of grief as age, wretched in both. If it be you that stirs these daughters' hearts against their father, fool me not so much to bear it tamely. Touch me with noble anger, and let not woman's weapons, water drops, stain my man's cheeks. Know, you unnatural hags, I will have such revenges on you both that all the world shall. I will do such things, what they are yet I know not, but they shall be the terrors of the earth. You think I'll weep? No, I'll not weep. So he's totally, I'll do such things. He can do nothing. So he's anger out of control, but he has no power at all. He's been unmanned by his daughters. He has divested himself of all potency whatsoever, and all he can do is cry. You think I'll weep? No, I'll not weep. I have full cause of weeping, but this heart, and then the storm and the tempest, shall break into 100,000 flaws, or ere I'll weep. O fool, I shall go mad. And then he goes out. And then Cornwall, let us withdraw, 'twill be a storm. This house is little, the old man's people cannot be well bestowed. 'Tis his own blame hath put himself from rest, and must needs taste his folly. This is how bad his daughters are. He needs to learn his lesson. And then Regan, but for his particular I'll receive him gladly, but not one follower. So am I purposed. Where is my Lord of Gloucester? Followed the old man forth, and then enter Gloucester. He's returned. The king is in high rage. Whither is he going? He calls to horse, but will I know not whither. 'Tis best to give him way, he leads himself. My lord, entreat him by no means to stay. Alack, the night comes on, and the bleak winds do sorely ruffle. For many miles about, there's scarce a bush. Oh, sir, to wilful men, the injuries that they themselves procure must be their schoolmasters. Shut up your doors. He is attended with a desperate train, and what they may incense him to, being apt to have his ear abused, wisdom bids fear. Shut up your doors, my lord, 'tis a wild night. My Regan consuls well. Come out of the storm. So now that all is left is the storm. And we have the famous scene of Lear on the heath. The tempest expressing in a sort of pathetic fallacy the tempest within Lear himself. All of nature expresses outrage at what has happened. Different portraits here. Your choice which of the ones are best suited to this. But this is the middle act. And I said to you in Shakespeare's plays, the third act is a sort of low point or high point, and then it starts to move towards a resolution one way or the other. This might be the low point. Remember, Lear has divested himself of his kingdom right at the outset, of his family. Now he's going to divest himself of all human habitation and of clothing, of all means of civilization. Explore the issue of human nature. He's still a human being, but how human is his surroundings at this point? He's out in the midst of nature. Is he more himself when he's there? For Shakespeare and his world, a man who is out in the wild like this, in the wilderness, in a storm, is a man who cannot survive. He's not in a better place. But this is the crisis point of the play. It's the most intense point of Lear's madness. And we will get an interaction in Act 3 of various figures of madness. Some of them are real, Lear, and some of them are feigned, Edgar. Remember, Edgar was going to be Tom of Bedlam, and they will meet together here. The two characters now mirroring each other, both having been loosed of their titles and the goodness of their lives. One of them by his own means, and the other by a malicious brother's means. So we have two foils put there together. So here we have, and as I said, this is a play about nature. Here we have nature in a form that shows a different way of looking at nature. Nature without any way of ameliorating it through a house or home or clothing will result in, as I say, desolation. So Lear is mad on a barren heath in the middle of a storm, and the storm is a symbol of disorder, just like it is in Scripture, by the way. In the great scene of the flood, that's exactly what we have. Remember, God separates the light from the darkness, the land from the seas, the heaven from the earth, man from woman, animals. There's all sorts of distinctions happening, and he pronounces it good. Those distinctions are there, and these are the means by which man is blessed. And so he says, be fruitful and multiply, fill and subdue the earth. Bring it under your dominion. Bring an order to it. You can bring a greater fertility by following the order of nature. If you seek to do the opposite and do wickedness, which is unleashed in the Garden of Eden in original sin, all of those things will start to break down. Rather than do justice, you'll do injustice. And God punishes this measure for measure, says, okay, you want things to not be according to my categories, I'm going to bring them back together. So the water falls from above and the water comes down from below, and the waters meet. So God lets them have what they want, effectively, and it's a means of restarting everything, as it were. Shakespeare's doing something similar here, insofar as the storm is a symbol of disorder, but it's a disorder that's going to allow him to reassert the possibility of a new order. So it's the bottom point, and we hope to recover from that. And that's part of what makes the tragedy so powerful, is that there is hope, because we know that Cordelia aims to come back. We're very far from that right now. But the order of nature has been overthrown, and we see that in the storm. The order of the body politic has been disrupted. We have a division in the kingdom and the looming threat of civil war between the two sisters. And we have the order of the mind being broken. We have a madman, a man who's lost his mind. His passions are totally overruling him. He's weeping and railing just like the tempest all around him. And the play makes it clear through the chaos of nature that Lear is mad. If we didn't need any other indication, the storm itself would indicate that. And I would say in Western culture, this is always the case. In films, in TV, however, when the storm is happening, it's reflecting something internal. So it's the microcosm, macrocosm use that emerges in the ancient Greek world never goes away. It's a way of illustrating. And we make the connections. So the question here at this point, when the order of things is so disrupted that there is seemingly no order left, there's none in nature, there's none in the body politic, there's none in the man, Lear himself, is there any positive sense of order affirmed at all in the play? Because everything that's fair has given itself over to foulness, and what is foul presents itself as fair. And I'll pick up this next time. And question, does Lear learn anything from his madness? Because we can see that he's recognized that he did his dear daughter Cordelia wrong. He's already trying, so there's a slight hint of moving back and trying to reconsider what he did and wish to undo it. But is he going to learn from his madness? Will he be purged of it? So he commits a hamartia, a fault, a bad choice, bad judgment here. Will he learn from this? I guess I'll pick that up next time. But let me just say this. In scene 2, at the height of his mental intensity, he actually urges on the storm. So he doesn't just suffer the storm passively, he goads it on. It's like one of the most awful scenes in literature. The others want him to leave and go find shelter, and the fool is counseling him, come, do something to protect yourself. Nobody can survive out in these elements. Lear is unwilling to listen to even that counsel. He will not protect himself. So Act 3, Scene 2, the famous scene. Blow winds and crack your cheeks. Rage blow, your cataracts and hurricanes spout till you have drenched our steeples, drowned the cocks. You sulphurous and thought-executing fires, vaunt couriers of oak-cleaving thunderbolts. Singe my white head, and thou, all shaking thunder, strike flat the thick rotundity of the world. Crack nature's molds, all germanes spill at once, that makes ingrateful man. It's as if he were God, calling upon things to be dissolved, to remake them. Like he wants a certain outcome as a way, but not as a judgment on himself, but as a judgment on everyone else, on the iniquity of the world, on the injustice of the world, which he still sees as external to himself. This is part of the problem of the play, is that Lear never really recognizes how much he has brought about the wrongs. And the fool is with him at this point, and still, oh, nuncle, court holy water in a dry house is better than this rainwater out of the door. Good nuncle, in and ask thy daughter's blessing. Here's a knight pities neither wise men nor fools. And instead he goes back at it again. I'll pick it up next time with this, but I think